only real danger that exists is man himself. He is the great danger, and we are pitifully unaware of it.
Welcome back, everybody. Whether you're the failed comedian who craved meaning that turned into the Joker,
Hi.
or Harvey Dent, the moral perfectionist who cracked under the chaos.
Rachel! Rachel, we're being abducted.
We all have parts of ourselves that we lock away. Anger we swallow, the needs we ignore, and the traits we call too much.
You have a kind of sick desperation in your laugh.
We have the exact same briefcase.
Carl Jung called this our shadow, the hidden self that holds what we deny. But what if I told you your shadow isn't completely your enemy? It could be your unlit potential.
Romantic reunions, government meetings, self-guided museum tours. I mean, am I living the dream? I don't know. Did I also just walk past a food truck and buy myself a waffle sundae? Yes.
Which part of yourself have you been the most afraid to face? Let's uncover some of these hidden pieces together by looking at 10 different common shadow types. But before we meet these 10 different versions of the shadow, let's understand how they operate. You've actually seen the shadow in stories your whole life. Gollum in Lord of the Rings is shown as obsession as a shadow. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde shows duality of good and evil in a person. Greek gods like Dionysus symbolize repressed primal desires. And Walter White in Breaking Bad had hidden pride and ruthlessness in his shadow. One of the reasons his character was so compelling was that it showcased a phenomenon that Jung called enantiodromia, where a suppressed shadow flips into its opposite extreme.
Chemistry is the study of matter, but I prefer to see it as the study of change.
Walter White went from the humble martyr with a secret hunger for glory to the charismatic leader with a god complex in Heisenberg. The humble martyr's shadow traits are repressed grandiosity, buried resentment, and a desperate need for recognition. The example being a meek high school teacher who tolerates ridicule but secretly believes he deserves more. The charismatic leader's shadow traits being hidden insecurity that morph into narcissistic ruthlessness. His transformation from meek teacher to drug kingpin, Heisenberg, masks deep feelings of inadequacy, financial failure, lost opportunities, etc. In the story, his shadow emerges as a need for dominance, leading to the manipulation of others.
Stay out of my territory.
One thing is sure, a great change of our psychological attitude is imminent. That is certain.
Why?
Because we need more. We need more psychology. We need more understanding of human nature, because the only real danger that exists is man himself. He is the great danger, and we are pitifully unaware of it. We know nothing of man, far too little. His psyche should be studied, because we are the origin of all coming evil.
Now that we have a little background, let's dive into 10 different shadow types that are relatively common. There's the control freak who fears chaos. Their shadow trait is the fear of losing control, invulnerability, or unpredictability. An example of this being someone who micromanages every detail of their life and the others' lives around them, but deep down they fear their own inner chaos. Their shadow might manifest as extreme anxiety or explosive reactions when things don't go as planned. Number 2 is the rebel who secretly craves approval. Their shadow trait is a desire for validation or conformity. An example of this being a nonconformist who loudly rejects societal norms but feels insecure when their uniqueness goes unnoticed. They actually want attention. Number 3 being the people pleaser who hides resentment. Their shadow trait could be repressed anger, selfishness, or the need for self-assertion. An example being one who constantly sacrifices their own needs to make others happy, but secretly harbors resentment. Their shadow might emerge as a passive-aggressive behavior or sudden, uncharacteristic selfish acts. The 4th we'll talk about is the Joker, masking inner despair. Their shadow trait is unprocessed grief or existential loneliness. An example being a comedian who uses humor to deflect serious conversations, yet struggles with depression when alone, fearing genuine emotional connection. Number 5 is the adventurer running from commitment. The shadow trait is the fear of stagnation or unresolved trauma. This is someone who constantly travels or changes jobs to avoid confronting past failures or forming deep relationships, masking a fear of being trapped. Number 6 is the charismatic leader with a God complex. Their shadow trait is hidden insecurity or narcissism. You'll see this in a charismatic figure who thrives on admiration but fears exposure of their flaws, and this leads them to manipulate others, and it leads to their arrogance. Number 7 is the saintly caregiver who neglects themselves. Their shadow trait is repressed selfishness or unmet needs. An example of this is a parent or caregiver who martyrs themselves for others but secretly feels bitter and unappreciated. Number 8 is the intellectual who disdains emotion. Their shadow trait is a fear of vulnerability or of irrational feelings, quote unquote. An example of this is a hyper-logical person who mocks others for being emotional, but struggles with loneliness or unprocessed grief themselves. And number 9 is the perpetual optimist who suppresses anger. Their shadow trait is repressed anger, sadness, or vulnerability. An example of this is someone who insists they're always happy, but unconsciously resents others for burdening them. Their shadow might erupt in passive-aggressive remarks or sudden outbursts. And for number 10, we have the critic who projects their insecurities. Their shadow trait is self-loathing or unacknowledged flaws. A person with this shadow type is one who harshly criticizes others' appearances, careers, or choices, often reflecting their own insecurities.
Anakin, all I want is your love.
Love won't save you, Padme. Only my new powers can do that.
At what cost? You're a good person. Don't do this.
I won't lose you the way I lost my mother. I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of. And I'm doing it for you. To protect you.
Come away with me.
Anakin Skywalker didn't fall to the dark side. He was consumed by the shadow he refused to face. His fear of loss became obsession, his love became possession, his power became tyranny, and in the end, the boy who dreamed of freedom became the monster in chains. We don't fall into our shadows. We're consumed by what we refuse to face. Fear twists into obsession, love curdles into control, power corrupts not because it's evil, but because it's wielded blindly. The parts we don't exile don't disappear. They grow claws. Our shadows won't destroy us unless we keep pretending that they're not there. So ask yourself, where am I repeating this ancient tragedy? Is my help really demand for gratitude? Is my strength a mask for unspoken fear? Is my logic a wall against feeling too much? The way out isn't to fight the dark. It's to stop pretending that you're only made of light. Wholeness isn't purity. It's the courage to say, this too is me. Which exiled part of you is ready to come home?
Where is Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right?
It seems in your anger, you killed her.
I couldn't. She was alive. I felt it.